For centuries, the Galactic Council had ruled over thousands of planets with a quiet arrogance, believing themselves to be the supreme minds of the known universe. They measured civilizations like humans with cold numbers, technological advancement, military capability, and societal cohesion, and found Earth amusing but harmless. Humans, they decided, were too divided, too emotional, and far too primitive to pose any real threat. So, when a scouting vessel was sent to make first contact, the Council had no real expectations beyond another planet, signing a one-sided treaty or surrendering without a fight. Commander Virex, leader of the mission, carried himself with the same arrogance, descending into Earth's orbit with a fleet of small, intimidating ships. He expected awe, perhaps a little fear, maybe even a desperate plea for membership into the Council's empire. But what he encountered was something no species had ever shown before, a boldness so raw and fearless that it unsettled even the most battle-hardened aliens on his crew. The humans responded within hours, not with panic, but with calculated curiosity. Instead of shooting missiles wildly into space or surrendering with messages of peace, Earth's leaders demanded proof of the Council's authority and even requested technical blueprints of their ships for security inspection. When denied, hackers from several nations worked together in secret, and within days, Earth's computers broke through the alien encryption like it was made of paper. Systems on board the Council ships began to fail one after another. Lights flickered, navigation systems glitched, and weapons locked themselves into safety mode, all while Earth's communication channels sent a simple, chilling message: if you come in peace, prove it. If you come for war, be ready to lose. Virex, now humiliated, ordered an immediate retreat, masking it as a strategic withdrawal to save face. But the damage had been done. The Council's mask of invincibility had been torn off by a planet they had laughed at only a month ago. Back on Earth, governments that had once argued over land, ideology, and economics now found themselves bound together by something far stronger: the realization that the universe was far more dangerous than they had ever dreamed. Under the secret program called Project Unity, human scientists, engineers, and military leaders combined their best minds. They worked day and night, fueled not just by fear but by a burning determination. In hidden facilities deep under oceans, within mountains, and across isolated deserts, humanity reverse-engineered every scrap of alien technology they had stolen during the brief contact. New alloys, faster engines, powerful energy weapons, and stealth fields that could fool even the most sensitive alien sensors were born in record time. What the Council thought would take centuries took humans less than 2 decades to perfect. The old maps of Earth were redrawn, not by borders of countries, but by the network of secret bases and colossal shipyards preparing for a future that was no longer a dream, but an inevitable battle. Meanwhile, in the stars above, the Galactic Council spun lies to hide their embarrassment. They reported to their citizens that Earth was insignificant, a backwater world barely worth attention. Yet, within closed-door meetings, panic grew. Plans were made to quietly send a second, larger fleet to Earth's orbit to establish control before humanity became a nuisance. But it was too late. Satellites launched from Earth monitored every move. Hidden probes followed Council ships across the void, and Earth's best minds had already predicted their every step. When the second invasion fleet finally appeared at the edges of the solar system, it found itself met not by panic-stricken natives, but by Earth's first armada, a fleet of starships bearing no alien symbol, only the proud flags of humanity stitched together under one banner. The humans opened no diplomatic channels. They simply moved into formation, surrounding the alien fleet in a perfect coordinated trap that showed just how far Earth had come. Admiral Reyes, Supreme Commander of the United Terran Fleet, stood on the bridge of the flagship Valor's Reach, staring coldly at the alien vessels that once thought themselves gods. With a single word, engage, Earth unleashed its fury. The battle was not fair. Council ships, built for intimidation more than true warfare, crumbled under human tactics and relentless firepower. Earth's fighters danced between enemy lines with agility that defied physics, striking from impossible angles. Heavy cruisers absorbed hit after hit without slowing down, their armor infused with newly developed nanomaterials, far stronger than anything the Council had ever seen. Within hours, the Council fleet was either destroyed or forced into surrender, with the few survivors whispering in terror about humanity's unstoppable rise. News spread across the galaxy like wildfire. A primitive planet had not only resisted the Council, but had shattered its proud fleets and sent its finest admirals running like cowards. The Council tried to downplay the incident, calling it a regional misunderstanding, but no one believed them. Independent planets began reconsidering their alliances, and the old empires that had ruled the stars with cold efficiency found themselves facing a terrifying truth: humanity was not a mistake of evolution, nor a footnote in history. They were something new, something dangerous, something inevitable. On Earth, the victory celebrations were short and quiet. Humanity knew that this was just the beginning. They had seen the universe's true face, one where strength ruled, and weakness was a death sentence. Earth began preparing not just for defense, but for expansion. Plans for colony ships, diplomatic missions backed by war fleets, and alliances with other rebellious worlds filled the strategy rooms. Humans had tasted the fear in their enemies' eyes, and they would never again allow themselves to be underestimated. The center of it all, a simple plaque was mounted on the flagship Valor's Reach, a reminder of where it all began. It read, "After the shocking victory against the Galactic Council's scout fleet, Earth did not celebrate in public squares, nor did it boast across media channels. Instead, it fell into a heavy and deliberate silence." World leaders, once divided by politics, religion, and greed, now found themselves in the same dark rooms, speaking in hurried whispers and drawing up plans that would decide not just the fate of their nations, but the survival of their species. Behind closed doors, the greatest scientific minds and military strategists were summoned, not to debate, but to act. The realization had struck deep into every heart. Humanity had peered into the vast, cold universe and seen its true nature, a place where only the strong survived and mercy was a forgotten concept. Earth was no longer isolated. It was exposed, vulnerable, and watched by eyes that saw it not as a potential friend, but as prey. In secret underground facilities, hidden research labs, and distant islands forgotten by the world, humanity began its greatest project yet, the forging of a new destiny through strength, innovation, and unity unlike anything it had ever achieved before. Factories that once produced cars and household goods were quietly repurposed into weapon manufacturing plants, while universities transformed overnight into centers for advanced alien technology research. New satellites were launched not for exploration, but for surveillance and defense, orbiting Earth like silent sentinels, scanning the void for the slightest sign of a new threat. In the oceans, massive shipyards were constructed beneath the waves, shielded from prying eyes, building not ships for trade but vessels of war. Across deserts and mountain ranges, hidden bunkers became training grounds where soldiers, pilots, and engineers underwent brutal regimens to prepare for battles that might span the stars. Entire industries shifted focus without the public ever fully understanding why. They were now encouraged to study mathematics, physics, engineering, and cyber warfare over poetry and politics. The world economy slowly but surely restructured itself to fuel this new hidden engine of preparation, and although the common man continued with his daily life, unaware of the scale of what was happening, a new spirit of resilience, curiosity, and determination quietly grew among the people. The Council, thinking Earth's spirit had been broken or that its victory was a fluke, occasionally sent probes to spy on the planet. They were carefully allowed to escape, feeding them carefully crafted images of chaos, protests, and apparent weakness. It was a masterstroke of misinformation led by the newly formed United Terran Intelligence Directorate, which specialized in hiding Earth's true power behind a curtain of staged division. Meanwhile, Earth scientists broke barrier after barrier, understanding alien physics and reworking it with human ingenuity into weapons and technologies no Council engineer had ever dreamed of. From fusion drives that could carry ships across vast distances faster than any Council vessel, to stealth systems that could make entire fleets invisible to known sensors. Earth was not just catching up, it was preparing to leap far ahead. Deep underground in the Atlas Research Center, a place even most governments had forgotten existed, A team of human engineers and scientists stood in awe before their latest creation, the Aegis-class battlecruiser. It was a ship born not just from alien designs, but infused with human stubbornness and creativity. Its hull was layered with adaptive armor capable of repairing itself mid-battle. Its energy weapons could slice through shields that had once been considered impenetrable, and its AI systems could learn and adjust strategies faster than any organic mind. But perhaps more impressive than its technical marvels was the spirit of those who built it, a spirit that said Earth would never again bow to any power beyond the stars. At the same time, on the isolated training grounds of Fort Horizon, men and women underwent the most grueling selection process in human history to become the first wave of Starship crews. They trained not just their bodies, but their minds, learning alien languages, tactics, and how to fight in environments that defied Earth's laws of physics. It was not enough to be strong or smart. They had to be adaptable, unpredictable, and relentless qualities humanity had always possessed, but now honed into weapons sharper than any blade. Their instructors pushed them beyond human limits, for they understood that when the time came, these soldiers would not be facing simple enemies, they would be facing empires that had ruled the stars for thousands of years. Earth's leaders knew that open confrontation with the Council would come, whether in 1 year or 50, so they made the bold decision not to simply defend but to prepare for expansion. Plans for colonizing other planets, building forward operating bases, and forming secret alliances with other oppressed worlds took shape in hidden war rooms. Humanity understood that survival would not come from hiding on Earth like frightened animals, but by stepping boldly into the galactic stage, claws bared and unafraid. Quietly, they began to send out unmarked stealth ships into deep space, gathering intelligence, mapping enemy supply lines, and seeking out those who might join them when the time was right. Meanwhile, cultural changes swept Earth like an unseen wind. Art, music, and storytelling began to reflect a new reality, one of exploration, bravery, and endless possibility beyond the stars. The next generation of children grew up not dreaming only of being movie stars or athletes, but aspiring to become pilots, scientists, and defenders of Earth's future among the stars. History classes taught not just the rise and fall of human civilizations, but the first contact that had changed everything, instilling in young minds the lesson that fear could be conquered by preparation and will. Slowly but surely, Earth was becoming a planet not of isolated nations, but of a single people with a shared destiny. As months turned into years, Earth's fleet grew in secret. From the massive shipyards hidden in the Pacific Trench to the underground command centers beneath the Swiss Alps, humanity built its forces in silence. They built not just ships, but strategies, alliances, and technologies that would shake the galaxy to its core. Every scientist who discovered a new breakthrough, every soldier who completed brutal zero-gravity combat training, every ship launched into secret deep space patrols became part of a silent chorus preparing for the inevitable. The Galactic Council still sat proudly on their thrones, blind to the storm quietly building across the small blue planet they had once dismissed. And so Earth waited, hidden behind a mask of normalcy, while beneath the surface, the engines of destiny roared louder with each passing day. Humanity was no longer the hunted, cowering behind oceans and mountains. It had become the hunter, patient, clever, and unstoppable. The stars belonged to those who dared to reach for them, and Earth had already made its decision. They would not merely survive, they would rise. And when the time came, when the Council would again turn its gaze toward Earth, thinking it still saw a weak and divided world, they would face not a planet, but an unstoppable force forged in silence, and steal the quiet preparation that would shatter the galaxy. The galaxy had grown used to Earth's silence, believing that the small blue planet had accepted its place at the bottom of the cosmic hierarchy. But deep beneath the surface of human civilization, the fires of determination had been burning hotter than ever before, and when the time finally came, humanity chose not to whisper its intentions, but to roar them across the stars. It began on a day that seemed like any other, with trade ships moving through hyperspace lanes and political councils busy arguing over minor border disputes. But then the galaxy's communication networks trembled. every frequency from the smallest merchant channel to the grand halls of the Galactic Council hijacked by a signal that none could ignore. The screen flickered and shifted into a view of a single figure standing tall and unflinching before a backdrop of Earth's night sky, where thousands of tiny lights from newly built warships could be seen like stars themselves, and the figure spoke in clear, calm words that carried more weight than any weapon ever built. "We are humanity," the voice said, steady and sharp, like a blade drawn slowly from its sheath. "We have heard your threats. We have seen your cruelty. We have learned your ways. And now we stand not as subjects, not as victims, but as equals ready to shape our own future." The message was short but unforgettable, and as it played again and again across every world, station, and ship, the true meaning behind it began to sink in. Earth was no longer begging for survival. Earth was declaring its right to exist, to expand, and to defend itself by any means necessary. The reaction across the galaxy was a mixture of confusion, fear, and disbelief. The older empires scoffed at the idea, mocking humanity's audacity, while younger, oppressed species whispered among themselves with a new hope sparking quietly in their hearts. For too long, the Galactic Council had maintained its dominance through fear and manipulation, believing that no primitive world could ever rise quickly enough to challenge them. But Earth had done the impossible, and now it was calling them out in front of the entire galaxy. As the declaration echoed through the void, Earth's fleets began to move. No longer hidden, the massive ships powered by fusion drives and armed with weapons that had never been seen before emerged from their secret docks. Led by the first of the Aegis-class battlecruisers, the fleet spread out strategically, securing critical jump points and establishing strongholds near resource-rich systems. They moved with purpose and precision, not to conquer innocent worlds, but to draw a clear line in the cosmic sand. Humanity would not be attacked without consequence ever again. On Earth itself, the celebrations were muted, not because the people were not proud, but because they understood the gravity of what had just been done. There was no going back now. The declaration was a challenge that would either usher humanity into a new golden age or bring forth wars greater than anything Earth had ever faced. The Galactic Council, enraged by what they saw as an insult to their supremacy, convened an emergency session where the oldest and most powerful species debated endlessly about how to respond. Some argued that Earth must be crushed immediately, wiped out before it could truly become a threat, while others hesitated, remembering all too well how the last attempt to invade Earth had ended in disaster. Fear, pride, and confusion poisoned their discussions, and while they argued, humanity acted. Covertly, Earth's agents moved through the stars, contacting resistance movements, offering aid to enslaved worlds, and planting the seeds of rebellion against the Council's rule. Earth's strategy was clear: they would not wage war alone. They would ignite a fire so large that no amount of suppression could extinguish it. Meanwhile, Earth scientists unveiled more marvels to support their cause. New energy shields that could absorb and redirect attacks, advanced cyber warfare programs capable of turning enemy fleets against themselves, and biological enhancements that made human soldiers stronger, faster, and tougher than ever before. The galaxy, which once laughed at humanity's backward ways, now began to fear their creativity, their adaptability, and above all, their unity. For the first time in galactic history, a single planet had risen not through slow centuries of politics and alliances, but through sheer will and relentless preparation. And as the first human fleet made contact with sympathetic alien factions, offering freedom and partnership rather than conquest, the Council's power base began to crack. The war drums had not yet sounded fully, but the tension was suffocating. Skirmishes broke out on distant edges of Council-controlled space, where human-led task forces clashed with loyalist patrols in quick, decisive battles. Each victory added to Earth's legend. Each alliance tightened the noose around the Council's throat. Humanity had thrown a stone into the stagnant waters of galactic order, and now the ripples were turning into unstoppable waves. Across distant worlds, statues of Council rulers were pulled down in secret, while human flags were hidden carefully by freedom fighters, waiting for the day when they could fly them openly. The galaxy had long believed that Earth would be easy to dominate, easy to destroy, but in their arrogance, They had missed the one truth that now echoed louder than any declaration. Humanity did not break, it adapted, it learned, and when pushed too far, it fought back harder than anyone could ever imagine. The declaration heard across the stars was not just a warning, it was a promise. Humanity would not fade quietly into the background of the galaxy's endless wars and betrayals. It would stand at the forefront of a new era. An era where no world would be crushed beneath a council's boot without consequence. An era where strength would be balanced by the fierce spirit of freedom and innovation. And as Earth's fleets sailed into the deep unknown, carrying with them the hopes of their people and the weight of their bold promise, the galaxy could do nothing but watch and prepare for the storm that was coming. The future had changed forever, and it had begun with a single fearless voice reaching across the stars, refusing to be ignored, refusing to be broken, and daring to dream of something greater. The galaxy had always believed in the strength of its oldest empires, massive civilizations that had ruled the stars for thousands of years, their fleets casting long shadows over weaker worlds, their leaders making decisions that shaped the fate of millions without ever fearing the consequences. But all of that began to change when the humans, once ignored as primitives, rose from the forgotten corners of space to challenge everything the empires thought they controlled. At first, the battles were small and easy to dismiss, single skirmishes at remote trading posts, brief clashes in the dark reaches of space, but with every fight, humanity learned, adapted, and returned stronger, their tactics unpredictable, their technology frighteningly effective, and their soldiers filled with a spirit the old empires could not understand. It was not long before the first empire, the proud Threx Dominion, made the mistake of sending a full invasion fleet to crush a human outpost at the edge of known space, expecting an easy victory. But when their mighty ships emerged from hyperspace, they found the skies already full of human warships, moving in perfect coordination, striking with precision that shredded the Dominion's forces before they could even organize a counterattack. In a battle that lasted less than a single day, one of the galaxy's oldest fleets was destroyed so completely that only a handful of broken ships crawled back to report the impossible defeat. The news spread faster than any official announcement, whispered through starports and hidden bars, shaking the confidence of every ruler who had once thought Earth a harmless curiosity. But humanity was not finished. Emboldened by their victory, they pushed deeper into Dominion territory, targeting key supply lines, communication hubs, and strategic planets with surgical strikes that left the Dominion's defenses in ruins. Their weapons were not just powerful, they were smart, disabling enemy ships without unnecessary slaughter, destroying factories and shipyards while leaving civilians unharmed, sending a clear message that humanity fought with both strength and principle. As the Threx Dominion crumbled, other empires took notice, some moving to tighten their own defenses, while others began secret negotiations with Earth, hoping to avoid the same fate. Then came the battle that truly shattered the galaxy's illusion of invincibility, the siege of Valcora Prime, a fortress world thought to be impregnable, protected by 3 planetary shields and an orbital fleet of 2,000 ships. No force had ever dared to attack it directly. Using a combination of stealth technology, cyber warfare, and precision orbital strikes, the humans dismantled Valcora's defenses layer by layer, cutting off reinforcements, disabling communication arrays, and systematically picking apart the great fleet that floated above it. When the final shield fell and human ground forces landed on the surface, they were not met by a fierce last stand, but by a broken enemy who had already accepted defeat. The fall of Valcora sent shockwaves across the stars. Entire regions of space that had lived under the rule of ancient empires for centuries began to rise up, inspired by humanity's courage and refusing to bow to their old masters any longer. The old empires tried to rally, forming shaky alliances against Earth, pooling their resources to build super fleets meant to crush the rebellion they had once believed impossible. Massive armadas gathered near critical worlds, thousands of ships prepared for a final, decisive strike, but humanity was ready. They did not match force with force. Instead, they struck with speed, precision, and ingenuity, using guerrilla tactics that exploited every weakness in the massive fleets. Ambushes in asteroid fields, sabotage of supply convoys, hacking enemy communication lines, to sow confusion, all of it combined into a strategy the empires had never faced before. They were used to grand battles fought with predictable rules, but humanity refused to play by their outdated traditions. Each empire lost not just ships and soldiers, but the very belief in their own invincibility, and with every defeat, their political alliances fractured further, old rivalries reigniting, internal rebellions growing bolder. As chaos spread, Earth continued its steady advance, not seeking to conquer or enslave, but to liberate and ally. In every newly freed world, humanity offered partnership instead of domination, treaties built on respect and mutual defense rather than fear, and for the first time in millennia, entire star systems chose to stand together, not because they were forced, but because they believed in the cause. Across the stars, banners once used to symbolize oppression were torn down and replaced with the new emblem of the Earth-led coalition, a symbol of hope for those who had suffered too long under the heavy hands of arrogant rulers. But even as victories mounted, humanity did not celebrate too early, for they knew that the greatest threat still lurked in the shadows, secret weapons being built by desperate empires, mercenary fleets gathering in hidden corners of the galaxy, dark alliances forming between those who would rather destroy everything than see humanity succeed. The final battles of this first Great War were brutal beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Whole planets became battlegrounds, space itself littered with the wreckage of fallen fleets, but through it all, humanity endured. They fought not just with weapons, but with unbreakable spirit, adapting to every new threat, standing firm even when outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded. Their resilience became legend, their victories shaping a new future that no empire could ever fully control again. And as the last of the ancient thrones fell, as the final warlords surrendered or fled into the cold darkness between stars, a new era dawned across the galaxy, a time where the voice of the smallest world could no longer be ignored, where freedom was not just a dream but a reality forged through sacrifice, courage, and the battles that had shattered empires beyond repair. After the fall of the ancient empires, the galaxy drifted in a strange and uneasy silence, as if holding its breath, waiting to see what would come next, for power abhors a vacuum, and the old rulers who once dictated the fate of millions had been swept away by a force they never saw coming, leaving behind broken thrones, shattered fleets, and desperate survivors clinging to fading hopes. Yet amid the ruins, something new began to take shape, something that had never existed before, a united strength not based on fear, slavery, or conquest, but on cooperation, trust, and the shared dream of a better future. It started quietly, almost too quietly for the galaxy to notice, as small worlds freed by humanity gathered together, forming councils and alliances, sharing technology, rebuilding cities, protecting each other against the chaos that followed the collapse of the empires. And at the heart of this quiet storm stood Earth, no longer seen as a primitive backwater, but as the rising center of a new galactic order. Humanity did not claim worlds by force. Instead, they offered something far more dangerous to the old ways: hope, fairness, and a voice for all. And in a galaxy where for centuries only the strong had been heard, such ideas spread like wildfire. Planets that had once been forced to pay tribute to distant rulers now sent ambassadors to Earth, offering friendship and requesting membership in the growing coalition. And as each world joined, humanity gained not just allies but knowledge, technology, and resources beyond anything they had before. Earth's scientists, soldiers, and leaders worked day and night, not to build monuments to their own glory, but to forge defenses so that what happened once, oppression by distant empires, would never happen again. Massive shipyards orbited liberated worlds, producing fleets designed for defense, exploration, and, if needed, swift retaliation, while new academies trained soldiers, diplomats, engineers, and leaders from every species, teaching them the ways of the coalition, where unity was strength and freedom was non-negotiable. This quiet, determined preparation soon bore fruit as former warlords and surviving pockets of the old empires began to stir, hoping to reclaim what they had lost, gathering forces in hidden systems, forging secret alliances built on desperation and hatred for the humans who had overturned their Rule. The first test came sooner than anyone expected when the Remnant League, a coalition of surviving Imperial admirals and warlords, launched a surprise assault on several key coalition worlds, hoping to shatter the new alliance before it could fully form. They attacked with brutal efficiency, their ships heavily armed and their tactics merciless, targeting civilian stations and supply convoys to cripple morale, but they underestimated the spirit they faced. Instead of crumbling under the assault, the coalition responded with speed and fury, deploying the new Earth-led fleets in coordinated strikes that trapped and destroyed enemy forces before they could retreat. Humanity's experience with adapting to the unknown once again proved decisive, as coalition fleets used flexible strategies, clever traps, and an unbreakable will to resist, turning battles that should have been defeats into stunning victories that sent a message across every star system: the age of fear was over, and the galaxy would never again be ruled by those who preyed on the weak. With every failed attack, the Remnant League grew weaker, their soldiers deserting, their worlds defecting, until their once feared fleet was nothing more than scattered wreckage and whispered stories of failure. Yet the battles were not without cost. Many brave souls, human and alien alike, gave their lives to protect the dream of freedom, and in honoring their sacrifice, the coalition grew even stronger, forging a bond of blood and brotherhood that no enemy could ever truly break. As peace slowly returned to the galaxy, the coalition's influence continued to expand, not by conquest, but because it offered something no empire had ever managed: true equality, true protection, and a true future for all peoples, regardless of their origin. New member worlds, seeing the writing on the wall, lined up to join, bringing their best minds, their strongest warriors, and their deepest hopes to the banner of the coalition, making it stronger with every passing day. And yet, amid the growing light, shadows still moved, for deep in the forgotten corners of the galaxy, ancient threats stirred, older and darker than any empire humanity had faced, watching, waiting, calculating when and how to strike. Earth's leaders knew that while they had won the first Great War, the true test was still to come, for power invites envy, and freedom invites those who fear change. So the coalition did not grow arrogant or complacent. They listened, they learned, they built, always preparing for the day when their unity would be tested by forces more terrible than anything they had yet encountered. Massive exploration fleets were dispatched into the unknown regions, scouting for dangers and opportunities alike, while defensive systems stronger than anything the old empires had dreamed of were constructed around key worlds, including Earth itself, now the glittering heart of a reborn galaxy. In every classroom, young humans and aliens alike were taught not just history, but responsibility, the knowledge that the freedom they now enjoyed had been bought with sacrifice, and could only be preserved by vigilance, courage, and the willingness to stand together against whatever might come. And so, as the coalition flourished, a new power truly rose across the stars. Not a tyrant's empire built on fear, but a living network of worlds bound by loyalty, trust, and hope, radiating a strength that could not be measured in ships or weapons alone. From the ruins of the old world, humanity and their allies had created something greater than anyone had ever believed possible. And though dangers lurked in the shadows, waiting for their chance to strike, one truth echoed across every corner of the galaxy: Earth had risen, not as a conqueror, but as the beacon of a new age, and for the first time in living memory, the stars belonged to all who had the courage to reach for them.